the end of this video, you'll be able to competently discuss the contributions of Robert Mager to the performance improvement world and their relative importance from a historical and practical perspective with a peer who has studied Robert Mager for the EME 6691 Pathfinder project. Performance-based objectives that focus on learner performance after instruction, like this one I just read to you, weren't always used by instructional designers or performance improvement specialists. Before Robert Mager, what was considered to be a best practice in the field was quite different. Instructional objectives were less learner-oriented and more instruction-oriented. This means that objectives had more to do with what was being taught rather than what the learner could do at the end of the instructional module. So instead of telling you at the beginning of this video how this instruction is going to change your ability in a certain aspect of your life, an instruction-based approach would design objectives that clearly stated the things that I would be teaching and the things that you should be learning. While this pre-Mager method worked out pretty well with regard to previous methods of instruction, it led to some scenarios post-training that were undesirable. The positive outcome of a training exercise did not always mean that a learner could perform his job correctly. Rather, it ensured that the learner only had a theoretical knowledge of how to act in a certain performance situation. Take a factory manager, for example. In the event that a piece of dangerous machinery breaks and noxious gas begins to leak into a workspace, would you want a manager who has practical training in assessing the situation and acting to mitigate the possible consequences, or would you want someone who could list for you all the ways to solve a problem? Mager is credited at large with being the man who shifted the field of human performance technology into a results-based field, and he did so by playing a practical joke on himself. In an effort to make one of his first lectures on performance-based objectives more challenging and more unique, Mager used a poorly designed example of programmed instruction alongside his new objective approach in order to stimulate his learners and get them more involved in the presentation. The effect was disastrous. While the learners came away with a good understanding of what Mager was saying with regard to performance-based objectives and evaluation, they also mistook his exceedingly poor examples of programmed instruction to be part of performance objective processes. In response, Mager wrote his book, Preparing Instructional Objectives, to save his reputation, and he's been a hero ever since. In Preparing Instructional Objectives, Mager uses the psychological principles developed by Thorndike and applied to program instruction by Pressey to describe why performance objectives are really important. In addition to being a straight-out great way for designers to outline objectives, the focus on learner needs primes the learner for acquisition. The performance-based approach does this by stating clearly in the learning objectives the learner's expected performance or what the learner is able to do, the conditions under which performance is supposed to occur, and the criterion or quality level of performance that is considered acceptable. Mager went on to develop and describe a pipeline or flowchart that emphasized the importance of clarifying intended outcomes before attempting to design instruction that can be guaranteed to accomplish those outcomes. Of major importance in the pipeline's design are its focus on identifying the cause of the problem, deciding which problems are worth solving, describing solutions which will help you solve the problem, and deciding which solutions will be both practical and economically feasible. So let's imagine a hypothetical. Keep in mind that in answering these questions, evidence must be collected to support answers, something that is not done in this imaginary scenario. If I were in charge of a distance learning support center at a college and I was having a problem with professors performing poorly in the online environment, I may run down this flowchart in order to find out who or what is causing the performance gap. Starting at the top. Whose performance is concerning you? Well, I've already stated that the distance learning instructors are not performing well. Well, let's describe the discrepancy then. An observation of the course shells from many of the classes shows that there is an inadequate level of interaction between students. Is fixing the problem necessary? Poor engagement strategies in distance learning environments lead to higher failure rates and lower learner performance. So in interest of college efficacy, this is a problem that needs solving. Are expectations clear? Yes, they are. We have had many meetings and faculty development training courses that outline what it is that make an online course effective. Are the resources adequate? There are several instances of quality work by instructors throughout the college using the same learning management system, hardware and software. It's likely that this is not a significant problem. Is the performance quality visible? Yes, we have access to the professor's work and data backing up our previous assertions. Is the problem sufficiently solved? Absolutely not. We have yet to take corrective action. Is the desired performance punishing? Actually, yes it is. Running an online course properly is hard work. It turns out that most of the face-to-face professors who have elected to convert their courses to online courses are expecting to have a significantly easier workload, when in fact the opposite is true. Correcting the performance of the instructor may have a punishing effect. Correcting this misconception may also ensure that the right people are selected as instructors. Is poor performance rewarding? Yes, in that the instructors may have more leisure time based on their own perceptions of expected workload. So let's make sure they know what is expected of them and provide consequences to poor performance. Are performance consequences used effectively? Well, it appears that there is very little course evaluation and summative evaluation going on. So let's get someone in charge of evaluation and give them the power to incite change through appropriate rewards, consequences, and direction. Has the problem been solved? Well, no. Our people still lack the technical know-how and the knowledge of best practices and policy that they should. Is there a genuine skill deficiency? Well, kind of. Our instructors have taught often in the past and have experience teaching online, even if it is poorly done. Let's give them some feedback on their performance and some support in improving. Can the task be made easier? Well, certain processes might. Let's develop a better way of doing things. Are there any other obstacles? Well, not really. This is what we've got to deal with. Does the person have the potential to change? Most of our professors do. Some need to be replaced, so let's get some instructors back to their face-to-face classrooms and train the ones who we want to keep. After all that, all we have to do is calculate the costs, select the best solution, draft a plan, implement it, and be done. Pretty simple, right? Maker's design is very practical, and it's so important because it is learner-centered. And it also establishes the groundwork for your design through careful inspection of the problem. Follow these guidelines in developing your instructional strategy, and you'll be sure to enhance learner performance in the job setting because you have developed training that focuses on performance-based outcomes and evaluation. Now that you have a firm understanding of who Robert Maker is and why he's so important to the HPT world, come join us on the discussion board. And thanks for watching.